Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the 5th VPL Biennale. And it's amazing to see all of you here. I just have a few little announcements. For those of you who were not there last night, I did say I apologize for my voice. I am not sick, so you can hug me. And I take hugs. But I had a food interaction, so I'm a little hoarse, so just bear with me. So just a couple housekeeping things. Exits are all marked by the green lights, and they're all out there, so just pay attention. Bathrooms are on either end of these halls and also around the corner, so you should be able to find those. For everybody, the program is online, and so you need to go to the website and hit program, and everything is there. And then there's a button at the top and at the bottom where you can click in to get the descriptions of all of the sessions and read bios and those good things. But we kept it green with being online. If you have problems with being able to access it, or your device is just not giving you big enough print, see folks at the registration desk, which also is anybody in the pink lanyard is here to help you. So if you see somebody with a pink lanyard and you got a question, that's who to ask. But they can help you access it. I am going to ask that everybody silence their cell phones before we get going, so that doesn't interrupt. And I forgot to do mine, so I'll get mine as soon as I get down there. I've got a few people that I would like to thank. First of all, I'd like to thank the consortium, which was a combination of folks from Ireland, from Canada, and from the United States. And so could all the members of the consortium that organized this please stand? Great, thank you. And as part of that also, we had co-organizers who were really guiding us all the way. So could the co-organizers please stand? We should have 5 of you in the room. Okay. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. One other, I mentioned this last night also, is that we've got 31 countries represented here, which is absolutely amazing. It actually gives me chills right now to think about how this work has really gone beyond being a specialty in certain areas, but really has become the fabric of how we think about recognizing people. And so it's going to be a really exciting 2 days, really being able to hear about everything that everyone is doing. As part of that, you would have also at one point gotten an email inviting you to submit a abstract to be part of, to then submit an article for the journal PLAO, which is Prior Learning Assessment Inside Out. We do pronounce it PLAO, and it's an online international journal that looks at theory, research, and practice in the prior learning assessment world. In the United States, we call it prior learning assessment or credit for prior learning. There are little cards that are out on the table. So if something like this, we're inviting everybody who's attending to be able to participate if you're interested. So please grab one of these. We'll also be putting out another email where you can sign up. There's a QR code here that takes you to the little sign-up place, and then we'll be back to you about that. But in doing that, I'd just like to very quickly ask the co-editors of PLAO to stand. So we have myself, Alan Mandel, Susan Forsale. We've got Ruud, I don't see where Ruud is right this second, there we go, and Carl Burkhardt. And so any of these folks, if you've got any questions, go right ahead. And a couple other little things. I had to take all these notes all over the place. We are live on, used to be Twitter, now I'm forgetting what it's called now. But anyway, it's hashtag 5th VPL Biennale. And we're also encouraging you to join the LinkedIn group. And so join in with the social media as well. And so now I think I'm turning it to you, Ernesto, right?
Well, hello everyone. Good morning. What an honor to be here and opening the day. I really feel honored. For those that don't know me, I'm Ernesto Villalba. I work for the European Center of the Development of Vocational Training, CEDEFOP, in Thessaloniki. And it is not only CEDEFOP who has been our co-organizer, there are many other organizations. I was the only one that was brave to stand up, maybe, I'm not sure. But there were many people from UNESCO, ETF, the European Commission, so we have been a very big group. And I have been privileged, really, that I have participated in all the biennales since 2014. Yesterday, Ruth was telling us the kind of the history of each one, the theme of each one a little bit. And it really has, I have been able to see the change in a way in the community. I think it started relatively small, kind of as a product in a way of a specific project, and it has grown to what it is today. We have, I think it's more than 390 people. It was, the registration was full really soon. And it really has become a global aspect, a global convention where we can really come together and discuss. And I think this is remarkable. And I think that, the fact that this is the first Biennale that has been organized by 3 different constituencies in a way, Canada, US, and Ireland from Europe, it really shows that growth and that kind of global impact in a way that the Biennale has had. So it really has been amazing. What I'm going to try to do is to give you a little bit of the main theme, let's say, to kind of come back to the main theme of the conference. And then I will be joined here by the 3 people that have been really the most, I think, instrumental in the development of this Biennale. Andrina, Nan, and Susan, they will come, and we will discuss a little bit about the specific themes. And then we will go into the program with the keynotes and the panel and all this. So, very briefly, I think the Biennale comes at a really important time, and I was very happy when we were discussing about what will be the theme of this 5th Biennale. And, people, validation, power, democracy in action, question mark. Yesterday, I think it was Nan who said that the question mark was important. And I fully agree, because I think that we need to ask ourselves if validation is really empowering people. I think in the theme, if you see people, it's at the front. We keep saying that the individual has to be at the center of this process. But it's through validation and through kind of knowledge that people gain power. And this is something that we need to kind of reflect on and make sure that we are actually valuing all the knowledge and not excluding, as also I think Susan mentioned yesterday, we are not excluding certain types of knowledge, certain types of capacities, certain types of work. We want to kind of, as much as possible, kind of use the full potential of everyone. So I really think that the theme is very relevant now in a world that we are living, where there's so many fake news, where you never know with artificial intelligence what is real, what is not real, what is made up. And at the end of the day, we need to kind of ask ourselves if that validation of knowledge is what it needs to be. So I'm looking forward to the discussions, to the key issues here. We are coming together. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge and power, in a way, in this room. And I really, really hope that we will be able to kind of come up with ways of how do we move forward, how do we together move along. So The four themes, and as again, I really want to give a round of applause to these three remarkable women. They have been really instrumental in putting us together. As I say, maybe there were around 20 people that were organizing these many different organizations with many different ways of being and understanding knowledge and skills, I would say. And they have managed to kind of put it together, make sure that we are all aligned in a way in this program that you have seen is really, really busy. So it's going to be a very busy day. I think, as Nan said yesterday, we probably will be asking you to move, to go, but make sure that you talk to people, that you share your knowledge, that you are there with us. So the conference has been divided into four themes, and you have seen in the program there are a lot of concurrent sessions kind of highlighting one of the themes. Of course, they are all interrelated, and I think that's also important to kind of highlight. The four themes are the validation and the individual, the validation and the skills, validation and inclusion, and validation and mobility. I will just do my bit for a very short time on the validation and the skills. This year, as you might know, was the European Year of Skills. As part of this year, in a way, there has been a lot of activities. It was just closed last week by the commissioner. And, you know, they were discussing how important skills are and how we don't need 1 year of skills. We need a decade of skills or a century of skills, maybe. So this kind of, I think it has highlighted the importance that we have given of skills, of learning, how crucial it is that we kind of have the skills. And it is important, I think, or a big important part of this is actually the validation of those skills, to make sure that those skills can be accounted for. As we know, at the end of the day, validation is a process to kind of make visible those things that are invisible and kind of giving a value. And through that process, people are empowered, they are kind of learning who they are. And again, we can use the full potential of the individual and not only one specific part. We try to use the full potential. And in Europe, at least, there is a big discussion about the skill shortages, the fact that companies are not finding the right skills, and kind of using the full potential of the individuals, kind of trying to find out what are the capacities of the people are fundamental. And it is fundamental also, again, to be open to it and not only kind of excluding certain parts of the population that might have less access to those knowledge, to that knowledge. So that, again, that we open up and kind of we accept different ways of learning. For this, we need to decide not only the how, in a way, that is what many of us are working on, but also who determines what valid knowledge is. I think that is a fundamental question that goes, again, to the fundamental issue of the Biennale and who determines, who are the stakeholders that decide what is and what is not valid knowledge. So over the program, you will have, I think, in skills specifically, there are like 13 sessions. There will be a lot of different examples on specific of skills, talking also about artificial intelligence and how this is used to identify skills. That is becoming more and more important. There will be discussions about the Swedish case and Canada and the US. So there will be a lot of different sessions that I think will highlight these aspects that I was talking about of the importance of skills and validation. With this, maybe I give the word to Nan. As I say, it has been really a pleasure to open it, and I really hope that we come together to work on the validation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So when I was up here a few minutes ago, I realized I didn't even introduce myself. So I'm Nan Travers. A lot of you I talked to over the last year. And I'm from the United States, and I'm at SUNY Empire State University. I'm going to talk for just very, very briefly about the next theme, which is looking at validation in the individual. And I think my very first question to us is, why are we really doing this? And to me, it is about the individual. But we have a tension that we don't usually stop and recognize, which is about the individual and whatever community that that individual is trying to belong to. And so when we really think about this, we each are an individual, but we belong to a community, we belong to a collective. And knowledge isn't just an individual's, it's also a collective. And so we've got this tension in terms of how do we recognize an individual and how do we start to bring that individual into the folds of where that might be, whether it's in higher education, industry, other kinds of environments, where we're saying, yeah, you've got knowledge and skills, and so yes, we're going to recognize you, yes, you belong, but in that in itself, we are creating conditions, we're creating rules, we create barriers, even though we're trying to make it inclusive. And so we really want to be thinking about, as we look at validation in the individual, what are the kinds of things that we're doing? How are we creating our policies? How are we creating our practices to be really recognizing all individuals, all experiences, all different ways of knowing, but also understanding what it is that we're trying to recognize and being actually quite forward about that. Because if we say we're recognizing this, but we're actually, one of my things is assessment. So if we're assessing learning over here and saying it belongs over here, we're totally doing a disservice to the individual. So as we explore more and more about the validation in the individual, we really need to be thinking about that relationship of the individual, of the community, and of the kinds of things that we're willing and able to actually recognize and credential. And now I'm going to turn it over to Susan.
How amazing, from that vision in Iceland a couple of years ago to thinking, we should get involved, we should do something, and here we are. So it's a little bit awe-inspiring to look out over this room and to see all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the insight sitting at these tables. I'm going to share stuff that you already know, and I'm going to talk about inclusion and how democracy, RPL really impacts it. And I have to say, it feels so good not to have to change my vocabulary. And, so many of us, we work on the peripherals of education, and we're having to explain what RPL is, what VPL is. So it's amazing to be with this group. In the concept paper, which I'm sure you all read thoroughly a couple of times over before coming, we asked the question, how can validation be an enabler to empowering local while thinking global? We asked, whose learning is valued within validation, and how is this determined? Those of you who were able to attend last night's reception, I spoke to epistemology, and today I want to dive just a tiny bit further into this topic. Traditional epistemology often emphasizes formal education as the primary source of legitimate knowledge. But we know RPL, VPL, PLAR, whatever name you call it, challenges this, broadening our understanding of what is legitimate knowledge, including informal and non-formal learning. But is that enough? One of the most important considerations for this is, how does VPL impact inclusion? Who is included, and more importantly, who is excluded, and why? How can we be more inclusive in meaningful, accessible, and culturally appropriate ways? VPL has the potential to enhance inclusivity by recognizing and valuing diverse learning pathways, diverse ways of knowing. It can enable individuals from various backgrounds to have their learning validated. Some of you may know or may have read Jen Hammer's paper in 2016, open source on Playo, called Assessment Philosophy, a Critical Consideration for Ethical Skills Recognition. She speaks to self-worth, stating that RPL engages discursively with identity, the understanding that identity is not fixed but is socially constructed. This impacts self-worth, self-esteem, agency. Dr. Hammer shares how increasing this understanding can enhance inclusion, that sense of belonging, the importance of being seen, being valued. As we know, there are multiple ways of knowing, multiple worldviews. Last night, those of you who were able to attend the reception had the opportunity to hear Colleen Seymour's heartfelt talk about a glimpse into the diversity of the Indigenous peoples in Canada. For us at TRU, we have walked a very narrow, Thompson Rivers University in Canada, we have walked a very narrow, linear, compartmentalized path towards prior learning assessment. We have decided what is important to assess and how this will be assessed, and it has not been inclusive. We can do better, we need to do better. To be inclusive, we need to work with students to ask them, what support do they want and need? We need to introduce, as we're doing, a radically open pedagogy. We need to include lots of interest holders, the elders, the knowledge keepers, the community members, the language holders, in the discussion on what is learning, how and can it be validated. We have a vital role. It is up to us, the researchers, the practitioners, the policymakers, the influencers, to understand this, to use our voice. RPL, VPL is about so much more than reskilling, upskilling, career resiliency. So I'm going to leave you with one question today and tomorrow. Are we doing enough to be inclusive in our practices? Thank you.
I feel a bit like Nan and Susan. We're in awe at everybody who has joined us for these great conversations, and we're so excited about what you have to say. So I'm not going to say too much because we've also got a fabulous panel ahead of us. I do want to thank Annie, Anna, Fiola, Aline, Katie, Raoul and Marie, who not only helped us but also managed to bring a new baby into the world, so we congratulate her on that as part of all of this. Ernesto and Rud. And I also want to thank my own organisation, QQI, and Jim and Porrick, who are here today, for helping us with all of this work and for releasing me to do it. My theme in the paper is democracy and mobility, and it's a theme that really gets me excited because the president of our country talks a lot about mobility, and he really believes and challenges us to realise that mobility is our human natural way of being, and that stasis actually isn't natural for us, that mobility is how we are. And so in the paper, where we came to with this paper as a consortium and as co-organisers was because we listened to the discussions that are happening socially and culturally across our communities, but also in the VPL world. And I guess for all of us, how we experience and understand mobility is hugely circumstantial. For Irish people, our experience and sentiment has altered enormously in terms of mobility since the Great Famine years in the 1840s, when people left and we had what we called an Irish wake. People wept for weeks because you would never see the family or the person again. 74 to 78 million people globally claim that they are Irish or know themselves to be Irish, and that's emanating from that particular time. Each of us experience mobility in a transformative way personally, changes in our personal identity brought about by circumstance and by the opportunities that come our way, or the lack of opportunities, or the way we experience opportunity, personal progression. And we heard wonderful stories of that last night, including professional opportunities across our life course. And that's mobility. That's a transformation that we experience one way or another that can be helped through the experience of validation. Mobility is also caused, and we see this in enormous numbers, and we've experienced it here in Ireland and most European countries very profoundly in the last 2 years, caused by experiences of emergency, through climate change, through famine, through war, through economic challenges, and through poverty. And that's harder because people come with the experience of deep-seated, as Susan alluded to there and as Colleen shared with us last night, internalised trauma. And that's a difficult thing to assimilate. It's a difficult thing to manage. It's a difficult thing to carry within you, that not just the story of your mobility, but the story of that pain and of that impact, that personal impact. And then, of course, there's the real excitement of mobility for learning. We know there's over 6 million students participating in educational programs globally outside of their own jurisdiction. Erasmus+, Erasmus Mundi, Europe on the Move, really exciting programs that help us to learn to think globally, to respond better culturally, and to understand each other more sensitively. But displacement impacts individuals, as Nan said. It impacts our families. It impacts communities differently. And integration, the work of integration, asks different questions of us as humans, one human to another. So what can be our democratic responses to that? What democratically do we need to do as institutions and as organisations, as systems and as people? And how much room can we make for the questions and answers? So the concept paper attempted to sort of flag a few of those, and it was really wonderful to see in the responses so many of the concurrent sessions addressing that and building them in. So as some of my colleagues have said, how do we strengthen our approaches so that we value and respect different cultural knowledge and ways of understanding? Are our recognition frameworks and constructs sufficient for fair recognition and validation? And what challenges us most in our context in responding to those individual needs where mobility is involved, whether it's personal, whether it's as a community, no matter what the cause is, how do we need to adjust and what changes do we make? We are so excited about the panels that are coming because they bring such wisdom to all of this and to these three really, really important concepts and themes. And we know that over the next 2 days that so many of you have so much wisdom to add to that too. So the plenary sessions that we have, you're going to be throwing up answers and considerations and reflections that we will treasure, I think, all of us, and bring back to our own jurisdictions. So thank you all so much for coming and responding in such might and main to the call that has been put out. Thank you.
Okay, and now we have the great honor of our keynote speaker, Ted Fleming. And I am not going to read his bio. It is on the web. You can look him up. He's very well known out there and very, very impressive. But I just wanted to kind of point out a couple little things. First, I do want to mention that he worked very closely with Jack Mesereau, and those of you who are in the adult learning world, that's a person you will all know and such, and actually was quite impactful on my own work as I was going through my doctoral work. And one of the things that I want to kind of point out about that is, over the last 50 years and during, especially the last, I would say, 30 years, we've really had a revolution on the adult learner. And all of a sudden, it's like an awakening. Like, people don't just stop learning after they're done with their secondary education, and it keeps going, and my goodness, shouldn't we do something about this? And look how much of our lives continue with that. And so, as we are now, after kind of this awakening period, I think we're in a new awakening period where we're really looking at how do we rethink our assumptions and begin to flip over our points of view as we start to look at what's next. And so I want to invite Ted up here because I think what you're going to find is he's going to do just that, is completely flip our point of reference in terms of when we think about recognition and democracy.